Hi all. You are on the Software Developer blog channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Today I will tell you what Agile methodologies are and what Scrum is. I think many of you have heard these words. Some of you apply these methodologies in your projects. Today I will talk in simple words about how it works in real projects. What is Agile? Agile in translation means flexibility. If there are flexible methodologies, accordingly, there are non-flexible methodologies, but we will consider them in other videos. In more scientific terms, Agile methodologies are software development approaches based on an iterative process and collaboration of different specialists in order to achieve a workable product. Release it and satisfy the needs of the client. What does this mean? This means that with the help of such methodologies, our teams that develop software can work in concert and deliver guaranteed, that is, at certain intervals, some kind of working result, which ultimately emerges into a finished product. So, Agile methodologies are a family of methodologies with unifying ideas and principles that were documented back in 2011 at a ski resort. The document included 4 main ideas and 12 principles. The first idea was that people and processes are much more important than the tools that should be used in software development. The second idea says that a working product is more important than competently and clearly described documentation. No need to waste time writing a bunch of documentation, it's better to immediately rush into battle and make a product. The third idea says that direct and unhindered communication with the customer is much more important than a very well-structured and documented contract with the same customer. And the fourth idea is flexibility, and this idea says that the variability of the product is much more important than following a predetermined plan. And on these 4 ideas, in principle, all the main types of Agile methodologies are based. What are these types? There are several approaches that I can immediately name. These are Scrum and Kanban. Today we will talk specifically about Scrum. 90% of projects in all IT work with this methodology. What is this methodology? How does it work? What does it include? Scrum is also an Agile software development methodology. In Scrum, I have identified 3 main roles. The first and most important role is the client, who can pitch an idea and hire a development team and a team of other people to work in the Scrum process and in the software development process. The second role is the product owner. And it is often confused with the client because product owner is literally translated as product owner. But in fact, this is an intermediate link that conducts all communication with the client about his new ideas, about how the product should work, and, in principle, about the entire functionality of the product. I would say that the product owner and the client are equally embedded in the essence of the work of the product and, in general, in the essence of why it is being developed. The product owner can be either on the client side or on the team side. Next comes the third role. These are Scrum Master and Scrum Team. We'll talk about this a little later. There is also a business analyst. This is the person who works directly with the product owner. The business analyst understands very well the processes that take place in this business, and he is the link between the client and the product owner with the development team. It is this person who translates the tasks of the client, ordinary everyday tasks written in ordinary language, into tasks that are understandable to developers. But often this position may not exist, and then every person in the team or team lead of the project will fulfill this role. He does this with the backlog. A backlog is a list of the tasks that need to be done to complete a product. And lest you think, the backlog does not consist of tasks, but of larger entities. These entities are called epics in classic Scrum. Epic, let's just say, is a big task, a lot of functionality that can be completed as part of product development. For example, an epic could be an integration with an external system. Further, epics in the backlog are divided into stories. Stories are a smaller part of the functionality that cannot yet serve as a development task, because it is larger and described in more general terms. But nevertheless, it breaks the epic into smaller subtasks. For example, to implement integration, you need to create web, REST services. And it will be stories. Typically, stories answer the question, I, as a user, want something. For example, I, as a user, want to be able to send data to another system, or I, as a user, want to be able to send a message. And this is also a story. The backlog of all these entities is handled by a business analyst paired with the product owner and with the client. Backlog is not just a list of some tasks, it is a prioritized list. That is, the product owner prioritizes tasks, which means that some of the tasks must be completed first. Thus, at the output, the developers receive stories already sorted by importance, which the developers further break down into tasks. There are many different meetings in Scrum. These meetings are called by different names. There are a huge bunch of them, at the beginning of sprints, at the end of a sprint. Moreover, every day there are 15 to 30-minute meetings, called weekly daily, at which each team member talks about his current tasks, talks about what he did yesterday, talks about what he will do today so that the whole team is in sync. One of the main meetings is planning poker. Planning poker is that team meeting where they take stories from the backlog and break those stories into tasks. These 3 tasks are evaluated. Everyone is used to the fact that the task is estimated in terms of time. This is the hour, minute, day, and so on. This is a bit wrong from the point of view of flexible methodologies, because the task is correctly assessed not in terms of time costs, but in terms of complexity. These are slightly different sizes. Therefore, story points are used. Story points is a dimensionless value. It can be toys, elephants, earth, parrots, anything. The fact is that in order to evaluate the task, the developers who have gathered at planning poker, they ask about the reference tasks. For example, if the whole team has previously worked with the registration functionality, at planning poker the team considers the task of finalizing this functionality and, for example, estimates it at 2 story points. And why is this meeting called planning poker? Because everyone in this meeting has cards that have a number corresponding to a certain number of story points. To make the assessment as fair as possible, everyone chooses their own number of story points when declaring the task, after it has been analyzed. Then the cards are revealed so that the scores are visible to everyone. Then there is a discussion. If the scores differ, it is clarified why the developer, tester gave such a score. After their explanations, a revote is made. If after that, the results do not jump very much, then the story borders are selected. If the results jump anyway, then the last arithmetic is taken. Thus, planning poker usually evaluates the complexity of tasks. There is also sprint planning. This is a team meeting at which it is decided what tasks will be in the sprint, and goals are set for implementation in this sprint. What is a sprint? This is another important concept in Scrum. A sprint is a period of time during which developers perform some fixed set of tasks estimated at planning poker in an evaluation session. And at the end of the sprint, there should always be a workable piece of the product, or the entire product, that can be demonstrated to the customer. The important thing is that by the end of the sprint, there should be a workable piece of functionality. As part of the sprint, the task changes its status. And this is one of the most important concepts of the sprint, the status of the task and the time of its sprint life cycle. Initially, tasks after evaluation fall into the to-do status. We have a board in Scrum, regular or electronic, with columns where tasks move by status. Columns can be named differently. For example, we have to-do, in progress, code review, ready for QA testing, QA passed, done columns. But the boards are different and the columns can be more or less. Accordingly, these are the statuses according to which the tasks flow. The task after the evaluation goes to do. After that, the developer, when he takes its development, moves it to in progress. When the developer has finished the tasks, it moves to code review. Then, ready for QA, that is, ready to testing. If the tester finds bugs, he sends the task back, either in progress or in another column called blocked, rejected, need info. If the task has passed testing, then it is moved to QA passed, done. So, the shorter the sprint, the easier it is to make changes to an existing project, because it is planned in the print. Accordingly, if the sprints are short, then you can quickly apply the changes in the next sprint, mutually understand. If the sprints are long, then you will need to wait for new changes if the customer of the corners knocked something. It will be necessary to wait for the end of the sprint so that these changes can be implemented in the next one. This is partly the essence of flexibility. This is such a ceramic approach. From experience, I can say that sprints are usually done for 2 weeks. When you have short sprints, it takes a lot of time for these meetings for the start of the sprint and the end of the sprint. You don't understand when you need to work. There is a lot of talk in this model, really a lot. Here, many developers have problems with time, because they want to develop, but they have to talk a lot. And a lot of developers start complaining, like, let's work. But in fact, all these conversations help to be on the same wavelength. Next, there is the Scrum Master. This is another role on the project that works according to the Scrum methodology. The Scrum Master is the person who makes sure everyone follows the Scrum Agile, resolves project conflicts, initiates improvement initiatives, and more. Because it is difficult to organize yourself, sometimes it is almost impossible to organize yourself. And we need, let's say, an assistant, a person who watches this from the outside and manages these processes. The Scrum Master usually schedules all the meetings, sets the time for the team for daily, standard meetings, sees if there are any plugs in the development or in the creation of the backlog. In the analysis of tasks, looks after all this, helps to deal with these problems. That is, it makes sure that the development processes do not stop in the Scrum model. Often this role is performed by project managers. You can assume that I wrote you almost all the main points of the classic Scrum. There are a number of other meetings in Scrum, which are held by Scrum Masters, which are aimed at improving communication in the team, interest, motivation of employees, developers. Good quality work. For example, there is such a meeting to identify the desire of developers to work on a particular technology, on a particular role. When the team gathers, the developers, all the participants, write down on stickers the responsibilities that they would like to take on. Then these stickers hang out, and each of the developers chooses the stickers of other guys and puts their own in the column. Thus, the manager and the Scrum Master show that, for example, a person who works with databases and other things can work directly with the front end. This allows the manager to concentrate on such subtle moments in the team, to satisfy the developers, because the developers are often not contact, they don't always say what they want. And such events help to improve the overall atmosphere in the team. The important thing is that Scrum is not a methodology that is well suited for huge teams. There are other methodologies that I mentioned that are less flexible and are designed for large projects with hundreds of developers. Scrum, on the other hand, is classically designed for a team of 5 to a maximum of 9 developers. There is even an unspoken rule. It is called the rule of 2 pizzas. If you can feed your team 2 pizzas together, then you can still work with the Scrum methodology. If your team can no longer cope with pizzas, then you should either change the methodology, or split the team into several and use Scrum in each of the teams. Synchronizing results between teams using a manager, for example. I hope that was clear, but there are a lot of new terms, so if you want to better understand this methodology, I recommend that you watch this video again. Thank you all for watching. Hope this video was helpful for you. See you again, bye.